Good evening, and welcome to another hour of Healthy Conclusions, where we try to give our listeners important information on nutrition, exercise, and holistic, alternative, and integrative medicine. Please take a minute to visit our website at www.healthyconclusions.com and like us on Facebook. My name is Bob Neugebauer, and I will be your host for this evening's show. Tonight's show is being brought to you by Altrua Health Share, which has been serving its members and their families with their health care needs since 1997. Please take a moment to visit their website at altruahealthshare.org or call them at 888-244-3839 to see just what Altrua Health Share can offer your family, and for their health care needs, it might mean substantial savings to you. Our guest for this evening is Dr. Colby Inzer. Dr. Inzer graduated from Boise State University with a degree in health science, went on to Westbrook University for his Doctor of Naturopathic Medicine, and he is president of the Idaho Association of Naturopathic Physicians, secretary of the National Board of Examiners of Naturopathic Quality Assurance, and knight and deacon in Sacred Medical Order of the Church of Hope. Is there anything I missed, Dr. Inzer?
Not at this point.
Okay, well, let's try to get into this a little bit. If I remember correctly, last time you and I met was at a convention, at a meeting with an expert on herbs and essential oils. And tonight I'd like you to try and enlighten some of our listeners on what it would, what kind of role essential oils play in natural medicine and what you use them for. And could you give us a brief history to start off on how essential oils were discovered and ushered into society by the Egyptians?
Okay. Well, the history of essential oils goes back as far as man, almost as far as man has been around. We have found several pieces of literature and references as far back as BC 4500. So the use of essential oils and the aromatics is very long, and there's a lot of good uses we have from them. In Egypt, there actually was a tomb that was uncovered that had a laboratory inside with essential oil recipes in hieroglyphics on the walls.
Well, that's interesting. Could you tell us a little bit about this?
Absolutely. This was the temple of Edfu on the west bank of the Nile River. And to go a little closer to our time period, there were 22 alabaster jars that were found in King Tut's tomb. Nearly all of the oils that were in these jars, specially designed alabaster jars, were broken open and the oils were stolen. The robbers that stole these oils left all the gold, the silver, the precious jewels that lined the sarcophagus and were lining the burial walls.
Why would they do something like that? Why would they take the oils, leave the gold?
Well, the oils have much more, especially at that time, much more value than the gold and silver.
And why was that?
Number one, the health benefits. Number two, they kind of smell good. And in a time when there wasn't a whole lot of running water, oils often were used to cover up smells and for the first part, and then to also heal the body of aches and pains and bruises and a lot of medical issues that were going on.
So they were using these oils back in those days to actually do healing.
Yes.
Were there any other uses, or was it just the aromatics of the oils?
There were several other uses, but the aromatics is what we have focused on in recent times as to the healing properties and why they were used. And these aromatics, as we're finding out now, can be antibacterial, antiviral, antitumoral, antifungal, and can treat a whole host of diseases that we deal with today, such as athlete's foot and the common cold and flu.
You know, if I remember correctly, in Exodus 30:23 through 25, where God gave Moses the recipe for anointing oil, what is it that we now understand about these essential oils listed in this recipe?
Number one, each one of these oils are, like I mentioned before, antibacterial and or antiviral and or antitumoral and antifungal. Now, when this anointing oil, you have to understand where the Jewish culture was coming from, and the ancient Israelites and the Hebrews they were coming from. This anointing oil was for use by the Levites to anoint themselves and those that came in to pray in the synagogue or the moving tent at that point, to be consecrated and to be seen as holy before God, that they are preparing themselves to be before the holiest of holies, God. And these antibacterial, antitumoral aromatics would keep them from getting sick, number one. Number two, the smell was pleasing. If you read further in Exodus, the aroma was pleasing to God.
So in those days where you didn't have doctors in emergency rooms, you had these aromatic oils. I presume that they were used by what they would call physicians in those days for healing processes.
That is correct. Another side note, again, we're talking about the sacrifices that the Israelites were told that they needed to do to God, is the Levites were commanded to use frankincense to clean the blades of the that were used to sacrifice the goats and the sheep, and they had to be goats and sheep without blemish and without defect. But by cleaning the blade with frankincense, which is antibacterial, antitumoral, antiviral, it was killing anything that might have been inside that blood that could have made the Levites sick.
So they were using it kind of as an antiseptic.
Absolutely. There are several oils that are great antiseptics. Frankincense is one of them. Myrrh is another one. And there are some common oils that we use quite a bit today that also can be antibacterial and antiseptic, like peppermint and lavender.
Do you use these in your practice at all? I'm just curious.
Absolutely. There are a few people who are allergic to the essences and the lifeblood, which are what essential oils are. And for those, I use very specific oils. But for most people, lavender is a great go-to oil because it has so much good and does so many good things. So many of the ones that I use in my practice are lavender, lemon. I use some wintergreen. FDA has to have a caution on it because it could be used wrong. But lavender, wintergreen, and there's a couple others that I use quite a bit.
Can you tell us why, since the beginning of the 20th century, there has been such a resurgence in essential oils use and research?
Well, the biggest thing is that first gentleman that started bringing this back was Dr. René Maurice Gattefossé. Pardon me, I'm terrible with names. This is a French physician. He's called the father of aromatherapy because in 1907, and so this was before World War I, he started seeing that essential oils started healing several of his patients with different common diseases. Like I said, the common cold, the flu. When someone would come in with a cut, they were able to apply oil and they'd heal faster. Then his students came back and showed that the essential oils would fight an infection and use them on many of the soldiers during World War I while they were in France. Then as that started going, other physicians got into the ball game and started saying, wait a minute, if this was so good, what else can these oils do? And you'll notice if you go and look up essential oils that many of these original researchers were French physicians and biochemists.
So most of this research was taking place in Europe, but not here.
At this point in time, that's absolutely correct. There may have been some things going on in the United States, but it was also about this time that the American Medical Association was formed to fight against the snake oil salesmen. And at that point, the AMA was needed because there were some very dangerous compounds being used by guys looking to make a buck and not looking out for the health of the individual.
Okay, hold on one second. Hold that thought because we're going to have to take a quick break. We'll be back in a few minutes for your listening to Healthy Conclusions, brought to you by Altrua Health Share with your host Bob Neugebauer on 580 KIDOAM and 107.5 FM. Welcome back to Health Conclusions on 580 KIDO. We're speaking with Dr. Colby Inzer about essential oils, sponsored by AltruaHealthShare.org. So, Doctor, we were talking about the oils that actually started doing research in Europe. Can we continue on from there?
Absolutely. Because the United States started falling under the American Medical Association, and medical doctors in the United States were pushed away from using natural substances like essential oils. That's where the European physicians, and especially French physicians, started gaining ground and using more oils in what they were doing.
Why was it that they were pushed away by the AMA if their efficacy was working so well?
A lot of it, just like we know in our own state, a lot of it really was politics. Who was doing what and who was in power? And without getting into many of the other politics that go on right now with the AMA and where their ideas lie of how treatment should go, as medical schools started coming under standardized practices and standardized trainings, many of the natural treatments and ideas were lost.
Was that because of the drug companies' influence on these boards at the medical schools?
That is my personal opinion. If you do some research, you probably could come to that same conclusion. But as it stands right now, it is, if you were to go into a general practitioner's office, 99% of the time they will want to put you on a prescription drug to treat whatever it is that's going on in your body. And I will tell you, in my experience, for extremely acute cases, that is actually a good start. But then once you get the symptomatology under control, then you need to come back to the natural substances, God-given plants, herbs, essential oils that we have available.
So you're of the opinion that the drugs are good for a short period of time to arrest the imminent problem, and then using natural methods after that, such as essential oils, to fix the problem on a more permanent basis.
Exactly. I had the opportunity to talk to a cardiologist several years ago, and I told him what my ideas was, which he agreed with, was if someone walks into his office, 80% of their cardiac vessels are clogged, there's nothing that I can do dietetically with essential oils to get that unclogged, to make sure that the heart vessels unclogged, to make sure that you can actually function well. So go in, get the Roto-Rooter or the angioplasty and clean out the blood vessels. Then after the surgery, come see me so we can make sure that your vessels are healed and they don't get clogged again. Essential oils can play a good role in that, and there's some other dietary lifestyle changes that also need to happen.
Aren't the dietary lifestyle changes the more formidable parts of changing what's going on in your body rather than these prescription drugs?
It is a much better way to get things done, yes. The problem with American society as a whole is we want a quick fix. We want everything fixed and back to perfect now. Downside is, and this is what I have to tell my patients on a daily basis, it took you years to get to this point that why you are in my office. It's going to take longer than a couple of weeks for you to get better. And while we're in the process of finding what works for your body, there will be some roller coaster effects in your body. Sometimes you'll be great. Other times you'll start feeling not so good. But I'm looking at the overall to say you were really bad here, almost at death's door. You walked in, hunched over to my office. We did this. We're doing this. Now your long-term goal is to get better. That's going to get there. It's going to take probably at the minimum a couple months up to a couple years to get back.
You know, I've been going to doctors. I'm 72. I don't spend a lot of time in their offices, but I go for an annual physical. And I have never had any of them ever recommend an essential oil for me for any kind of a problem. Is that just the nature of the allopathic physicians?
That is the nature of the allopathic physician. They just aren't trained in what essential oils can do. And that's where the complementary and alternative medical system is really good. We are complementary. We look at things from a slightly different paradigm. The great big pie of health care, I know my little tiny slice really, really well. I also know when you need to be out of my office and go see the orthopedic surgeon, the neurologist. There are some things I just can't do. The neurosurgeon. There actually was a patient of mine I had to send to a neurosurgeon because of what was going on in his back. He got the surgery. He came back to my office. We've been working with essential oils and some other natural supplements, and he is doing great. We took his A1C down from 10.0 to 6.5.
Wow, that's a big move. You know, I understand that there are many uses for essential oils, but most of them, they must be combined with a carrier oil. Can you explain this dilution process and why carrier oils are used?
Absolutely. There are many that do need a carrier oil. The reason being is the essential oil is a volatile oil. That is, and not volatile in that it explodes or burns with flame, but because it does react with a biological system, there are several that do need to have a little bit of a buffer between the oil and the body. And the good carrier oils, there are several, can be almond oil, olive oil, or coconut oil. Because almond oil and olive oil are liquid at room temperature, they are most often used. But these carrier oils help to keep you, especially if it's applied topically, from getting a chemical burn.
I see.
There are several that you don't have to have a carrier oil with. Some of these, like the most common ones we use, lavender, lemon oil, peppermint oil, all are great to drop neat on the skin. And a great one for when you have dental issues to numb, works as a mild anesthetic, is clove oil.
You know, I remember my mom giving that to me when I was a kid.
Absolutely. There are many things, like I said, many treatments and philosophies that have been forgotten by Western medicine and pharmaceutica.
Well, you know, these oils are usually used by rubbing them into the skin. What other methods do you use of dispersing them for effective therapies?
Effective therapies, putting them on the skin actually is a great way to get them into the body because it passes through the blood-skin barrier and will go into the system that it needs to affect fairly quickly. And like the clove oil or myrrh in the mouth, it will numb some of the pain so you can actually, like you said, when a child that's teething, it will burn like heck when you first put that oil on, but then it numbs the pain so that as those teeth are coming through the gum lines, they will not hurt. Then with something like a damaged or broken tooth, it gives you that numbing sensation while you're waiting to get to the dentist's office so they can remove that tooth or fix it as they need. And I have my own belief system with some of the dentistry practices today. That's a whole nother subject. There are many oils that you can get, and they actually have them in encapsulated, so in capsule form that you can take orally. Sometimes you can do that with I've seen it with some cinnamon oils, a little bit of myrrh, not too much. All of oregano oil I've seen an awful lot of, and that is an incredible oil if you've got a cold or a flu, because it works incredibly well as a antibacterial, antiviral to kill whatever it is that's causing you to be sick.
I understand it's also a good antifungal oil.
Yes, it is. It is, and what's great, especially with lavender, because it is such a good go-to and it can be put directly on the skin, lavender works great for athlete's foot. Another great one for athlete's foot is the tea tree. That one does need a little bit of a carrier oil. Helichrysum is also really good. Myrrh is a great one.
Okay, we're going to have to take a quick break here, Dr. Colby. If you could just give us a couple minutes, we'll be back. This is Healthy Conclusions on 580 KIDO. We're speaking with Dr. Colby Inzer about essential oils, and we're sponsored by AlchuaHealthShare.org. Welcome back to Healthy Conclusions on 580 KIDO. We're speaking with Dr. Colby Inzer on essential oils, and we are sponsored by Alchua HealthShare. So, Dr. Inzer, we were talking about essential oils and their medicinal purposes. How do people learn about them? What books do they go to? What would you recommend that they look at? And what would be helpful to help them learn about these essential oils if they would want to use them? I know when I go to the store, I see this whole rack of essential oils, but absolutely no information on what they're used for.
That's the biggest problem right now. There are some good ones out there. Unfortunately, the FDA, in their infinite wisdom, has decided that publications that are really good, like the Essential Oils Desk Reference, which is what I use, can no longer be published because they're providing quote-unquote medicinal information. Problem with that is they are being controlled by the drug companies. So these really good texts can't be published. So you're going to have to do a lot of research and some trips to Amazon and eBay to see if you can find some of these really good texts. There are some good texts still out there on the history of essential oils and how they were used in the Bible and other locations around the world.
But for today's use and for mixing them together, is there any volume that's out there that would be worthwhile kind of guiding people towards?
A good one that my wife has on her shelf is Aromatherapy and A to Z. It's by Patricia Davis. It has some good things and ideas and uses for essential oils, from chickenpox and childbirth to hemorrhoids, hair, and then it lists the different oils that you can use with each of those.
Okay.
And this particular one that she has was actually published, like I said, in this last publication was in 2000. So any recent publications, you're not going to have the really good information as to why these things work. There are some research projects going on right now with some veterinary sciences. They're trying to figure out the medical constituencies of the essential oils and having some great success in how animals are being treated. And the physiological background of animals is the exact same. The processes of how the muscles in animals work is the exact same way how muscles and the systems work in the human.
Well,
so
it's funny.
Means,
I just and just an aside, but I'm using a flea collar and tick collar on my dog now that's made of essential oils.
yes.
And I think it's cinnamon and wintergreen or something like that, but it actually works.
It works incredibly well. And you could use the same thing, that same collar on yourself to help control mosquitoes and ticks on you. There are some really great essential oils that can be used for insect repellent. Citronella is one of the go-to oils. Lavender, again, coming back to our favorite. Peppermint can work a little bit, but not as much. Myrrh actually seems to be a really good anti-insect oil.
A question for you. Is it important to use organic essential oils, or does it really matter whether they're organic or just pure?
Well, it does matter. Just like our foods we eat, if we're able to have truly organic foods, you get the most nutrition out of those foods, and you do not have any chemical additives sprayed on the food. And that's the same goes for the essential oils. Those oils come from the plant, and if that plant has been sprayed with an insecticide or an herbicide or something else, it's going to make its way into the essential oil. So it's not going to make the oil as good. There are some really good companies out there, and there are some fairly poor companies. There's several companies out there that are MLM in nature, so multi-level marketing. The two big ones that come to mind are Young Living Oils and doTERRA. doTERRA is actually an offshoot of Young Living. Both of those oils, if they work for you, great, use them. There are some others that are not MLM. The one that I use in my office, which is Time Lab, made by Woodrow's Aromatics. They're based in Pocatello, as a matter of fact.
And what
they
is that?
have a really good blends of oils and good therapeutic-grade oils, and they actually test all of their oils against many of the other companies' oils.
What's the name of that company again?
It's called Time Labs.
T like in T-I-M-E?
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure our listeners got that. Could you go through some of the more frequently used essential oils and give us kind of a rundown on the details of how they're being used today so we can make our listeners a little more familiar, since we don't have an awful lot of literature out there that's worthwhile. We have an expert on the...
Absolutely. One of the first things that I like to do, and you can actually get a good list of good oils from essentialoilspedia.com. But one of the things that I have used is an essential oil first aid kit. Many of these oils, lavender, which we've talked about several times, lemon, that's another really good oil. It seems to also purify water really well. Just like when you want to go to a restaurant, you like to have your lemon in your glass of water. It helps to purify the water and neutralize the chlorine that's in tap water.
Well, if it purifies the water, would it also be good for a cleaning fluid?
Absolutely. There are actually several essential oils that are really good for cleaning. Lemon oil is really good. Peppermint oil can be very good for cleaning, and to adding to an acidic solution like your 5% vinegar, distilled vinegar, and gives you a nice smell. It does help to clean the surface that you're using, but some of the and it can really help to cut through some of the grease that can be found in kitchens.
Well, as far as the peppermint oil goes, I do use that. Would that be something that would be good for allergies?
It can be. The other one that's really good for allergies is helichrysum.
Now,
and that's one of the ones that I like to keep in my essential oil first aid kit.
Where does that come from?
Helichrysum is a plant that actually grows in the Middle East, and being that many of these oils were first used in Egypt, it makes sense that many oils would come from the Middle East and around Egypt.
What about oregano? You said it was good for antifungal. Would it be something you would use for your feet, for toenail fungus or things like that?
Yes, you can. The oregano essential oil is great for inflammation, colds and flu. It will kill warts and skin tags. This is another one that's really good for athlete's foot because it is antifungal, and it's not going to give you bad effects like your your athlete's foot medications that you can get over the counter. It also is really good to clean your gastrointestinal tract, and it helps. It is a really good go-to for an antibacterial.
I understand it's also good for immune support.
Yes, it is.
So it's kind of an all-around health kind of an oil that would do a lot of good things for you. So it's one of the essentials you want to have in a house.
Yes, and it's one of those that when you start feeling the cold coming on, just like a good treatment to have on hand at all times is echinacea. You start popping some echinacea just before you get sick, and as you're feeling that sickness coming on, you take a couple drops of the oregano oil, and because oregano oil is a pure, and what I use is very pure, it can be fairly expensive. So you just need a couple drops for it to do its job. Because it is so good, it will help to clean out the system. And if you have any gastrointestinal issues, bloating, gas, and things like that, it'll help to nourish the gut and stop some of these issues.
Okay, we're going to have to take another break here. We'll be back in a few minutes. You're listening to Health Conclusions, brought to you by Altrua Health Share, with your host Bob Nuckelbauer on 580 KIDO and 107.5 FM. Welcome back to Health Conclusions on 580 KIDO. We're speaking with Dr. Colby Inzer on essential oils, sponsored by AltruaHealthShare.org. Dr. Inzer, just a couple more oils I'd like to go through here. I do use tea tree oil as an antiseptic, and it's probably used for several other things. Can you tell us a little bit about the tea tree oil? I understand it comes from Australia.
It does. Well, the tea tree oil, and those that use like doTERRA and Young Living will know it as Melaleuca alternifolia, and that's actually where the company Melaleuca was based on, and the uses that tea tree oil has. It is a great all-around oil. It does help clean the air, clean the certain surfaces. It also can be used for soothing skin irritation. Here's another one for bug bites, athlete's foot, eczema, and psoriasis. It also helps to pull out slivers when you get slivers in the skin. This is one of those that is very strong, and if you have a company that says you can drop this neat on your skin, then it's diluted with something. It has to have a 50-50 carrier oil to essential oil mix.
So it's
one drop of essential oil to one drop of the carrier oil.
So it's a very powerful oil.
It is an incredibly powerful oil.
Is this something you would recommend for people to use or have in their house along with the oregano and lavender? Absolutely.
This is one of those oils that I use on my first aid kit.
So this would be kind of like a hydrogen peroxide that the doctors would give you?
Yes, I also have a food-grade hydrogen peroxide that's been diluted in my first aid kit too, so that it can clean out any cuts or scrapes that you might have. The tea tree just accentuates what the hydrogen peroxide would do.
I've also read this is good for skin problems. Is that correct?
That is correct. The tea tree, or the Melaleuca alternifolia, and forgive me if I mispronounce anything, it is incredibly good. It is a very powerful, like I said, antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral. It fights parasites, and it will reduce some inflammation.
So if I had a bad case of eczema or psoriasis, is this something that I would use?
You could. Just remember, with this one, it is powerful enough that it does need a carrier oil. So, because if you drop it neat on your skin, that is no barrier on your skin, it would cause a chemical burn.
Okay. I'd just like to get to the last two, which are the two that were actually brought as gifts for Jesus' birth, myrrh and frankincense. And I understand these are two very powerful oils, which is one of the reasons they were given as gifts.
That is correct. Now, the cool thing with myrrh and frankincense is they both can be dropped neat on the skin, except for frankincense can react with certain really, really, really sensitive skins, and you just have to check it out. And if it reacts with you, then you want to do a dilution, a 1-to-1 dilution. But they are both really good oils. Frankincense especially, yes, frankincense and myrrh both were used for embalming because it does kill bacteria and viruses and helps to preserve the skin. Frankincense enhances the effects of other oils, and it's great for a grounding oil. Helps calm the body, can induce a meditative state, so you're willing to allow your body to calm down. It will relax you, and it does support the stomach. It helps to pull out, like H. pylori, as an example. It's very antitumoral, which would calm the ulcers that H. pylori could cause and will cause. And so that's another really good oil to always have on hand. Because it is a resin, it is one that is more expensive, and a little bit of oil goes a long, long way. Myrrh is great for infections and pain relief. It is an incredible antiseptic and analgesic. It is a mild anesthetic, and like I said, this is one that can be put directly onto your skin and not cause any burning.
Well, let me ask you a question. How would you use this if you wanted to get it and inhale it? What would you use to do this?
What would I?
I mean, would you just
again?
sniff it from the bottle, or would you put it in an atomizer, or?
You can do either. Putting it into an atomizer and getting it into the air, that will put the essence of the essential oil everywhere in the room. And the only caution that I have to say is if you are in a public place and you are using therapeutic grade oils, if there is someone that has a sensitivity to that oil, they can have a reaction. And there have been cases locally of people doing this in a business where the oil that they were putting out, because it was a therapeutic grade and a very good oil, it would overdo what it was needing to do in a system, and especially when you're working with kids, you need to use some caution with the atomizer and not have it going with one or two specific oils for very long. But the atomizer is really good, and the nebulizer is really, really good to getting that oil in the air and spreading the medicinal properties all through a room. You can drop it and use the droppers that are included in most of the essential oil bottles to do a single drop of essential oil, like on the tongue, on the surface of the skin, or into a recipe you're using. I've used fennel in my apple pies, and makes an incredible apple pie. Fennel oil, cinnamon oil, and nutmeg, and it just accentuates the flavors of the cinnamon, nutmeg, and a little bit of licorice taste with the fennel.
I'm going to have you over to my house on the holidays. I'd just like to talk a little bit about the essential oils, since we've gone through a fair amount of them here. As you know, I'd love to see some integrative medicine done here in this state and even more countrywide. It was something that was in the ACA Act, and I would like to see it in new health care, so that people have a choice, a freedom of choice as to what medicine they want to use and how they want to use it. Do you see essential oils as a potential of being a part and parcel of integrated medicine, where we take alternative and complementary care and integrate it with allopathic care to get that integrative process? And do you think that would be more healthful than the way we're currently doing things, because we don't have an awful lot of healthy people. We've got 225,000 people on Medicaid here, and it probably should be more like 300,000, 20% of the population. That's not a healthy group. And just, do you think integrative medicine would be a better way to go, using essential oils and other things like that?
Oh, absolutely. There's several treatments and treatment options that I have, not only using essential oils, but things like acupressure and combining some things that I will use on a daily basis with even essential oils. Since this is our topic today, helichrysum is another one that is really good for a broken bone. I make a note. You have a broken bone, and I have some field tests that I can do to see if it is broken. But you can apply the helichrysum to that while you're waiting for, if you have to call an ambulance, while you're waiting for the ambulance, or while you're on your way to the doctor's office to have that bone set. It will help encourage the tissues to knit back together faster. And that's one example. But especially for those that are just sick and under the weather, the antibacterial, anti-tumoral, antifungal, antiviral properties of many of these oils really will help to lower the overall cost of health care, because you're not going out to spend $300 on an antibacterial that's not going to do anything because you have the flu.
Well, and the fact is, we use antibiotics way too often in our bodies, and all they do is basically kill our immune system.
That is absolutely right. And many of these oils, combined correctly, and this is where you need to be able to have good text to refer to, and also have some of that experience. You can combine some of these essential oils to create an antibacterial that would even fight MRSA, which has been in the news recently again.
Right. Do you work with any allopathic doctors at all to combine the complementary and allopathic medicine?
Unfortunately, I don't have any medical doctors that I have a really good relationship with, that I can send patients to them and they'll send patients to me. I will tell people, especially since what I do is not covered, insurance in the state of Idaho won't touch me with a 10-foot pole. I will tell them to go see their primary care physician to get some of the tests that they might need, so that insurance will cover those tests, like a comprehensive metabolic panel, complete blood count, and like a vitamin D test, because I want to see where things are within the blood, but that only gives part of the story. So if I'm able to send someone to their doctor and the doctor is able to order exactly what I need, then that they can come back and I can go through those blood tests and say, this is what the lab says you're high, low, otherwise in. This is what I'm seeing, and this is telling me that you have this going on instead of that.
So then you do actually have an opportunity to work with them in some ways. We're going to have to cut this off. I'd like to get you back another time, and we can talk a little bit more about integrative medicine. We would like to thank Dr. Inzer for joining us this evening and for offering his insights into natural medicine. This is Bob Neugebauer signing off for Health Conclusions. We hope you will join us again at the same time next Sunday for another hour of informative talk on nutrition, exercise, and alternative medicine options, sponsored by AltruaHealthShare.org on 580 KIDO AM and 107.5 FM.